This was posted by Jim Jordan on Twitter, and it has clips of this Pomerantz guy who was the guy before Alvin Bragg, and it shows how far back the corruption in New York is, specifically trying to target Trump. This guy's greasy, who won't answer questions, but you can just see how guilty it is just by the way he conducts himself. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Let's watch the hatchet man, the think tank, the big boss that really came up with all of this get Trump stuff before Alvin Bragg came along.
How long have you known Alvin Bragg?
Same answer.
Fifth Amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you respect Alvin Bragg?
Same answer.
He takes the Fifth Amendment. That is, he has a right to not incriminate himself. He has a right to, he doesn't have to speak. You can't pull a confession out of someone, but it speaks volumes. And he already wrote a book that they're going to hang him on later. We'll get quotes from that book too. Mark Pomerantz, he's a former New York County Special Assistant DA. Pomerantz led the effort to develop a case against President Trump. Pomerantz abruptly resigned shortly after District Attorney Alvin Bragg took office. So once Alvin Bragg came in, he goes, my services are no longer needed here. The question is why? Because Pomerantz believed Alvin Bragg didn't file charges against President Trump fast enough. That's one of the things that we criticize him on now. Why did they wait so long? This guy was pushing. Pomerantz was, before Alvin Bragg came along. He was furious that he waited too long. Pomerantz's book, The People versus Donald Trump, an inside account, details his obsession with finding something to pin on President Trump. Congress has a, now this is about Jim Jordan's job. Congress has a specific and important interest in protecting politically motivated prosecutions of current and former presidents by elected state and local prosecutors because they don't want to undermine the vote of the people. Pomerantz appeared before the House Judiciary Committee. He declined to answer most of their questions.
Frequently, did you go to the office when you were a special district attorney? Did you have an office physically at that address?
The office is located in several buildings around One Hogan Place. It's not all in one contiguous space of offices. There were several office premises. Having clarified that, I'm not going to answer your question about how often I was physically at the offices of the Manhattan District Attorney.
Did you have your own desk there?
Again, I'm not going to respond to your question.
On the basis of what?
On the basis of the fifth paragraph of my statement. Conveniently, Mr. Castor, the fifth paragraph relates to the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, he's going to take the Fifth Amendment defense on how many times he went and visited Alvin Bragg's office. Well, we all know the answer, because if it was 0, he'd have said none. Or if it was a reasonable answer, he'd have said a couple times. But because he was probably living in Alvin, I'll make a speculation. I think he probably practically lived there. I think he practically slept in Alvin Bragg's office. They probably ate every meal together. They probably stayed up all night making plans on how to get Trump. You know, I'm allowed to fill in the gaps. That's what I think.
Since you've left the employ of the Manhattan VA, do you use email as a method of communication?
I decline to answer your question.
And who's your current email provider?
I decline to answer that question as well.
On the Fifth Amendment?
Yes, sir.
Well, the FBI, which is too busy shaking down small churches and pro-lifers, hunting down journalists, can't come up with going after a guy that's trying to prosecute a president and overturn election results of our duly elected president. This guy, they won't go after his emails. Wrong party. Hopefully they'll subpoena them.
Who's your current cell phone provider?
Likewise, I refuse to answer that question on the basis of my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
Okay, so a lot of that. Let's get back to his book. This is Pomerantz's book on the people versus Donald Trump. The following video contains excerpts from Pomerantz's book and his deposition. It shows quotes from Pomerantz's book and his responses when we asked him about the quotes in a printed book. We got them. Quote, as I tossed and turned, I asked myself whether he had done everything we could, whether we had done everything we could to convince Alvin Bragg to let us bring our case against Trump. I kept thinking that maybe we were being rash. So that's the plan.
You since come to a decision to revise that conclusion?
I decline to answer.
Yeah, and they're laughing. He looks over at his lawyer. Look at this. Here's the hand signal for it. Take the fifth, dummy. Don't say a thing. You'll incriminate yourself. Would have been cool if he threw out another amendment. He could have done and really confused his client. Here's when I joined the Trump investigation, I got countless emails and telephone calls from friends and colleagues urging me to, quote, get him, unquote, and wishing me luck. That's probably from Biden, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Merrick Garland, right?
I acknowledge writing the book, but I'm not going to expand beyond what is contained in the book for the reasons reflected in my opening statement.
Did they really say go get him?
Again, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to respond beyond what is printed in the book.
Did they not say go get him?
I'm not going to answer your question.
Yeah, I'll say he's not going to answer anything. His book answers everything you need to know. That this was a witch hunt. Way before Alvin Bragg came along, they were talking about it and planning it. He's not going to reveal any names of the people that planned it because it's probably all of the Biden campaign setting this whole thing out. Maybe even George Soros, maybe even the secret weird funding of where it's coming from. But this is a cool exposition of this dark character. You're not going to find much about him without a subpoena, without pulling those records out, because he knows to keep it tight. These are innocent, normal questions, and he doesn't want to give you any information, even when the answer is pretty obvious, guys. This guy, I think, gave everything away. What do you think in the comments below? Do you think he's a straight shooter? I'm Doug in Exile.